Have you ever taken a photo that looks super sharp until you zoom in? Yeah, it's frustrating. That tiny bit of blur, it can completely destroy your photo. But here is the good news. There's an easy fix. And the best part, it's simpler than ever, especially with the editing advancements we have in 2025. This technique called focus stacking, it used to be a hassle, but now thanks to smarter post-processing tools and built-in camera features, you can do it faster and get way better results. For those that are into landscapes or macro or even product photography, this truly is a game changer. And in this video, I'll walk you through the entire process step by step, no confusing jargon, just clear, simple instructions. Now, even if you follow every step perfectly, there's one tiny mistake that can secretly ruin your focus stacking results without you even knowing. The good news, however, is that there is a super simple fix that makes your images instantly sharper from front to back, so be sure to stick around for that. And by the very end of this video, your photos will be tack sharp, no more soft spots, no more frustration. But first, what exactly is focus stacking and why does it make such a huge difference? At its core, focus stacking is just taking multiple photos at different focus points and blending them together into one perfectly sharp image. It's a lifesaver when a single shot just can't get everything in focus, which is very common in landscape photography. Let me show you a quick example here. If I take a single photo of this subject, part of it is sharp, but the rest, soft, blurry, and not what I want. But if I take a series of photos, shifting the focus each time and stack them together, every detail crisp and clear. So let's break it down. First, how to shoot a focus stack series, and then how to blend it all together for the best results, and lastly, the mistake to avoid. And if you love PDF guides, I got you covered. I put together a complete guide with everything from this video, plus the raw photos we'll be using so you can practice along at home. You can download all of that in the link in the description below. So to jump right into it, how to shoot the focus stack series while you're on location. So we're going to use this image right here as our example photograph. And once you get on location, having a tripod, it is not 100% critical to do this. You can do this handheld, but using a tripod is definitely going to be the easiest way to do it and is more than likely going to result in the best results as well. So once you have your camera on a tripod, the next most common question I hear about has to do with the camera settings. What settings do you have to have for a focus stack series? The ISO you use really doesn't matter. The shutter speed you use really doesn't matter. Focus stacking is all about getting everything in sharp focus, so it's really the aperture is the most important. Generally speaking, for landscapes, you're probably going to want to be somewhere between f11 and f16. Product photography or macro photography might be a little bit different, but for landscapes, f11 and f16 is usually going to be the best place to start. And then once you have your camera settings dialed in, you don't change them. As you're moving your focus point to create the series, you don't change any of your camera settings. So once you have it set, lock it in and never touch it again. What I will usually do from here is I will take a photograph for the foreground here, and I use spot focusing or a small spot for my focus point. I don't use zones or anything like that. And then I just move that spot throughout my scene. So I'll take one image right here for the foreground. So for whatever area is closest to my camera, for this image here, I focus right here. And then I will move my focus point up to here, which I'll take the second shot. And then I will move my focus point up to the background to take the third photo right here. And if we look at this right here, so this is the image, I've already edited this one. This is the image that is for the foreground. This one right here is the one that's for the midground right through here. And then this image right here is the one that is for the background right here. So once you have all of your images captured and you get home, you put them for this video into Lightroom, what I like to do is, let me have them all here together. All of the ones that have the 5 stars, these are the ones we're going to be working on. This is the foreground, this is the midground, and this is the background. I always like to just edit one of those photographs. So I'm going to edit, I already edited this one right here to save some time. And let me go back. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all 3 of these images. I'm going to come over here to the image that I edited. I'm going to right click. I'm going to come over here to develop settings, and I'm going to come over here to sync settings. And basically I'm going to hit check all because I want to take all of the edits I applied to the first image and I want to apply them to the other 2 images. So now that I have everything checked here, I'm just going to hit synchronize, and I'm going to go ahead and let Lightroom go ahead and sync all 3 of those edits together. That's a time saver. You don't have to go in there and edit each photo individually. Plus it's going to make all of those photos absolutely identical. Now, it doesn't have to be the complete edit, but I try and get the majority of the edit done at this stage. And then once that is complete, I'm gonna leave all three of these images highlighted. I'm gonna right click again, and I'm gonna come up here to edit in, open as layers in Photoshop, and I'm gonna select that right there. And then this part right here just takes a couple seconds, but it's basically going to put each one of those images as a separate layer inside of Photoshop. So from here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna highlight all three of these. I'm gonna come up here to edit, and I'm gonna come down here to auto align. I'm gonna go ahead and hit auto align, and I always leave this projection, I leave it set at auto, and I'm gonna hit okay. Now you might be asking yourself, Mark, why does that matter? Because you were on a tripod, nothing moved. That's a great question. I want to show you something real quick here. So this is back in Lightroom. As you can see, look at you see that slight movement right here? These are the three photos that we're focus stacking together. There is movement there, even though nothing moved. My camera never moved at all. But as you move your focus point throughout the scene, all lenses do this to a certain extent. It's called focus breathing, basically, or lens breathing. But you can see those subtle variations as you move your focus point through your scene and take those photos. So it's always important to go ahead and hit auto align in Photoshop. We'll go ahead and make sure that everything is absolutely perfectly lined up. It makes the stitch that much better, or the blend that much better. And from here, I'm going to leave all three of these layers still highlighted. Once again, I'm going to come back to edit, that same exact place, and I'm going to come down here, one spot below auto align, and I'm going to come to auto blend layers. I'm going to select that, and I always leave the blend method on stack images. I don't want to do a panorama. I want to stack these images, and I leave seamless tones and colors checked, and content aware fill transparent areas checked as well. And then I simply hit OK. Now, typically in the past, this is the type of image that Photoshop would not do a great job on, because there's a lot of things moving in the scene. You have flowing water. There was a little bit of breeze, so those leaves are moving a little bit. In the past, you'd get ghosting and weird artifacts. Plus, the overall process was slow inside of Photoshop. Now it is faster than ever, of course, predicated on your computer. But I have noticed a substantial speed up over the years inside of Photoshop for doing this. Plus, the results now are the best that I've ever seen inside of Photoshop. And there's lots of different programs to do this in. Helicon Focus is one that's very popular, but I generally just leave everything inside of Photoshop. But once everything is blended together, it will create another layer right here at the top. And you can see that this one says merge. So now we have a total of 4 layers here. And the new layer is right here at the top. And if I zoom in here, look at this. So now we can see this is the foreground. Look how sharp the foreground is. The midground, perfectly sharp everywhere. And now look at the background. All of these leaves and everything are all perfectly sharp. So all 3 of those layers are now blended together. What's really cool here is you can turn this off. So let's come up here. Let's turn the merge layer off. Let's turn all of these off. So now we're left with nothing. I can click this layer right here, and this is the area of this image that Photoshop used. I can add this layer on top of that, and then this is the image. These are the parts of the photograph that Photoshop used for this portion, or from this portion of the photograph, and then this right here. So you can see like which areas of each one of these images that Photoshop used to create the final version here. And then once you're done here, what I always like to do is just come up here to File, I'll hit Save, and then it will send it back into Lightroom for me. And this is this file right here. If I hit the shortcut key I, you can see that this is the TIFF file. So from here, you can see, like we already reviewed, the foreground is sharp, and the background is sharp, and the midground is completely sharp, which was such a stark difference from where we were at before, when each one of those images, those 3 images, were only really sharp in a certain area. We blended them all together to create one master photograph, which is crisp and clear all the way through the image, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, as far as the mistake to avoid, this is a big issue, because a lot of times you don't realize the mistake until you're already home and you're editing the photographs. And one of the most common questions I have with regards to focus stacking is, Mark, how do you know if you have to focus stack a photograph? Which is a fantastic question. So going back to this image here, this is the image that is only focused on the foreground right here. So if I'm on location and I take a photograph and I'm focused on, a log in the, near my camera, and I review the image on the back of the camera, and I zoom in and I can see that everything looks pretty good here. The next most important thing to do is immediately go to the furthest area in your scene, which in this one is the waterfall and the leaves, and check and see if that is in sharp focus. And I can see that this is not in focus here. So what I can do at that point is I can take another photograph and move my focus point deeper into the scene. review that photograph, check the foreground. If the foreground is tack-sharp, you're good. If the background is tack-sharp and it's all set, then you don't have to focus stack it. That was a weird way to say that. But basically what you want to do is you want to review your photographs and make sure that everything is in sharp focus. And if you're having trouble getting everything in focus in a single photograph, that's how you know you got to focus stack that scene. Now, one of the biggest issues people encounter, I did it for years, is not taking enough images when you're on location. More than likely, the majority of your focus stack series is going to be near your camera. So I always take one for the area that is closest to my camera. So in this instance, this right here, I would always take an extra image just a little bit further and then take your midground image and then take your background image. Ultimately, it's always better to capture additional photographs just in case. If you don't need them, just delete them, but you want to make sure you have them, because if you have a gap in your focus stack series and you stitch it all together in Photoshop, you'll have an area in the foreground sharp, the midground will be sharp, the background will be sharp, for example, but then you'll have an area in between the foreground and the midground that's soft. So always shoot more images than you think you need, and more than likely, the majority of the photographs you need will be in this foreground area right here. Next important tip, in the very beginning, when we edited that very first photo, or I had the photo edited and I synced them together, you always want to do the majority of your heavy lifting from an editing perspective early on, because that is when you're editing on a raw file. Once you send that raw file over to Photoshop, you blend everything together and you send it back, it is then a TIFF file. If we look at this blended photograph right here, you see .tif. This is a TIFF file. This is no longer a raw file here. When you're editing a raw file, you have by far the most flexibility from a post-processing perspective. Editing a TIFF file is still good. There's still a lot of editing latitude that you have, but editing on a raw file is always better than a TIFF. So I always want to do the majority of my heavy lifting in the very, very beginning and then blend everything together in Photoshop. Because when it comes back, you can still do a couple little tweaks here and there, but the majority of your editing you want to do in the very, very beginning. That's something that took me a while to figure out as well. So I do hope that quick rundown was helpful. Be sure to check out the free PDF guide covering everything in this video, along with these 3 images that you can download and focus stack and practice along at home. If you have any questions about anything I covered here today, please leave those in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to get back in touch with you as soon as humanly possible. And if you did enjoy this week's video, if you could, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And as always, I really do appreciate you carving out a little bit of time to spend it with me here today. And I will see you all next Wednesday. Bye.